This video, we're going to be tackling the add two numbers LeetCode problem. And the great thing about this problem is two things. Number one, it's an easy medium. Everybody loves an easy medium in LeetCode. And number two, it's a great introduction into linked list. And here's the thing about data structures, especially when you're in college. You may be tempted to want to learn everything about data structures and linked lists, but linked lists and data structures are a lot like bicycles. You don't need to be a physics PhD to be able to admire a bicycle or to ride a bicycle. You can just ride a bicycle. And same thing for data structures. You don't need to be a computer science PhD to be good at linked lists. And that being said, let's go ahead and talk about this problem. So first things first, we are going to be given two linked lists. All linked lists are collections of data that are tied together. Now, we won't go into details about how exactly they are tied together, but just realize we have these nodes and they're going to be tied together. And what LeetCode wants us to do is basically to iterate through all of these nodes and add them together. So we are going to iterate through this one. We're going to, number one, we're going to add 2 and 5. We're going to add two numbers. So we're going to add 2 and 5 right here. And we're going to do the same exact thing right here. We're going to iterate over to the second one. We're going to add 4 and 6. And then we're going to have a 10. So we're going to have to carry it over. But we'll talk about that here in a second. So another thing is that we are going to have to create a brand new linked list in order to house all of these new values. And LeetCode wants us to basically create a new linked list. So we're going to create a new linked list right here. This one's going to be 7. We're going to iterate to the next one, and we're going to do the exact same thing, but we're going to add 4 and 6. And what's going to happen is we're going to get a 10. We're going to have to carry this 1 over into the next iteration. So we're going to iterate over here. 3 plus 4 is equal to 7. And then we are going to add that carryover, and we are going to make this an 8. So we are going to end up with 708. And we can go ahead here. We can actually go ahead and connect these just so you guys can kind of get another visual representation. We're also going to have to connect these as well to remember that, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But how exactly are we going to do this carryover? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to use what's called a modulus. A modulus is sometimes called a mod, and we are going to use this modulus in order to get the remainder so that we can bring it over to the next value and add this 1 right here to this 7 and turn it into an 8. But that's a very high level overview. Let's go ahead, let's hop into VS Code and let's go ahead and code it up. So first things first, just for a little bit of practice, let's go ahead and create the node, and this will help you visualize what is comprising this actual linked list. I'm going to go into here, going to create a new list node. This is going to be public int val. This is going to actually store the value. This is going to be public list node, and this is going to be what ties the actual node to the next node. Next thing, we're going to create a constructor for this so we can go ahead and initialize our data. This is going to be initialized with a 0 right here. This is going to also be initialized with another list node, and we're going to go ahead and set this next equal to null. Go ahead into here, this dot val is equal to val, and this dot next is equal to next. Now that we have that built, we can go ahead down here and we can go ahead and start building out the actual solution. First thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and create the actual method. So I'm going to say public list node is equal to add two numbers, and this is going to take in 2 nodes. So we're going to say L1, and this is going to be list node. This is going to be L2. Now, next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just come down here, and this is where we're going to first initialize the very first node. And we have to do this initialization and initialize it with nothing in it, which is actually going to be a 0. So if you look up here, we're actually going to initialize it with a 0. And we need to do this because the for loop's not going to kick off, because we need to iterate based on null. Now, if you don't know what that means, just go ahead and follow along with me here. So we're going to say new, and then here is where we're going to actually assign the head. Now, we've been working with for loops a lot, and when we loop through a for loop, we had to use pointers, but you don't really have that in linked lists. So you have to set your own pointers, and setting the head is almost like a pointer of its own, but in the linked list world. So next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set the sum. This is going to be pretty much state, and this is what we are going to be inserting into the new linked list that we are creating. So like I said, when we are iterating through a linked list, it's going to iterate until it reaches null. And that's exactly how it judges whether to move to the next node or not when we are iterating, trying to add them. And if it is null, it's going to go ahead and stop. And that's the reason that we have to have this result up here. Or this is the reason that we have to have this result right here in order to make sure, in order to kick off the while loop, that it's not null. So we're going to say L2 is not equal to null, and also if the sum is less than 0, because this is going to help us when we do our carryover. You may not know why we need this right now, but it'll make sense here in a little bit. So we have two linked lists here, and the thing is that these two linked lists may not be the exact same count. There actually may be another node in the bottom linked list, or there may be another node in the top linked list, and they might be uneven. So what we're going to do is we're going to place them inside of if statements. So we are inside of our while loop right now, and I'm going to say if L1 is not equal to null, and we're going to go down, and here's where we're going to add the value of the node where we are at, and we are going to add it to our sum. It's going to be very easy. So we're going to say if there's a value inside of our L1 part in the node, we're going to take it and we're going to add it to our state right here. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to use the linked list equivalent of incrementing to the next value, which is L1 is equal to L1.next. And this may look a little bit confusing, but just remember that this is the part that's going to increment it, and it kind of just makes sense. We're going to add the value to our sum up here, and then we're going to increment it. Then we're going to do the same exact thing, but for the second linked list. So we're going to go to here, we're going to say L2 is not equal to null. We're going to say sum is, we're going to add the L2 value to our sum right here. And then we're going to go ahead and we are going to increment it. And we are moving along very nicely. So we've already got our iteration taken care of, and we've already got our sum taken care of. We're already adding our 2 plus 5. Now we need to actually create the new linked list, and we also have to take care of the remainder. So first things first, we've already got our linked list created. Now what we need to do is we just need to create new nodes and link them. So what we're going to do is we've already got our 7. We're just going to create a new node and add it just like this. And then we're going to go ahead, you guessed it, link them together. I'll make sure to go ahead and make this red right here just to kind of match the consistency and make things look good. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to iterate again, and we got off easy with our very first iteration, but our next iteration is going to be a little bit more difficult, but not much. What's going to happen is that we're going to add the 4 and the 6, and it's going to give us 10, and of course we're going to link it because we're creating a new node, but we don't want 10 because that's not exactly adding it. That's just, we're adding the 2 numbers, but we also want to add the 2 numbers almost as if we're doing elementary school iterations. So what we're going to do is we are going to do a modulus right here. Now, if you don't know what a modulus is basically going to get the remainder for us, and it looks a lot like this. It's not a percent. It is a percent, but it's not 10%. It's what's called a mod. So we're going to mod this, and this is actually going to give us a remainder of 0. So that's the exact value that we're going to get. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to do a remainder here, and we're going to go ahead and add our remainder from our mod to the 3 plus 4 go ahead, create our brand new node. This is going to be a 7, but we need to go ahead and add a remainder. That's going to be 8. And what's going to happen is we're going to go ahead and link this, and that is going to be the end. So let's go ahead, let's hop into VS Code, and let's go ahead and finish this up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down below our if statement. We're going to take care of creating the new node and adding the new value. So we're going to have result.next. This is going to be a list node. We're going to go ahead, pass in the sum mod 10, and this is going to mod if we have a value over 7. So if we just have a 7, this is not going to change. But if we have something like a 10, this is going to be a 0, or an 11, it would be 1. And this is what's going to do our carryover for us. And what we need to do next is we need to do the actual carry. So we're going to go ahead down here. We're going to say sum divided by 10. And this is going to basically be the equivalent of this. So it'd be sum divided by 10, just like that. That is syntactic sugar for that right there. So we're going to go sum divided by 10, and we're going to say result is equal to result dot next. So after this, we are pretty much good to go. And here's the thing. We created a 0 value in the very beginning when we created the new node, and we had to do this so that the while loop would actually be able to kick off. But if we add just the regular head, so if I go into here and I say return the head just like this, it's not going to work. We need to have the head.next so that we don't get that 0 in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead into here, and I'm just going to let's go ahead and put this into VS Code. So go ahead, I'm going to bring this over. Let's go ahead, put this into the editor, and we're going to go ahead, run the test. We've got everything accepted. Let's go ahead and submit, make sure that our time complexity is good. So our time complexity is N, and our memory is N. Congratulations, we have passed the coding interview. Hope that you guys enjoyed this. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and as always, thank you for watching.